I'm Judith. I'm over 80, and I know some stuff. And you can tell I'm not in my regular place. I'm in a hotel room. I've been traveling for weeks and weeks and weeks now, but I thought it was time to do a video because otherwise there'll be a week without one, or a few weeks without one. So I've been traveling with my partner. We drove to the West Coast. We took 6 weeks. I did videos ahead of time, and um, and then he flew back home, and I'm now driving back across Canada alone, doing what I've called the Before It's Too Late tour. And I'm seeing all of the friends and relatives that I can on my way back. It'll take me about 3.5, pretty close to 4 weeks to get home. And I'm right now in Revelstoke, BC, in a hotel room. I've been at this now. This is Sunday, and this is Sunday, July 26th or 27th, and I have been at this Before It's Too Late tour now since Tuesday. And I started on Vancouver Island. Anyway, never mind all that. What I want to talk about today is doing things that challenge you, because my idea is to help give you my advice from my 81 years of how to create a happy and successful and fulfilling life. And I don't know everything, but I know a lot of stuff about what's worked for me. And one of the things that's worked for me, and I don't do it perfectly, is to do things that put me a little outside of my comfort zone. Not a lot, nothing dangerous, but to not be afraid to try things, to not be afraid to do certain things that that maybe other people hesitate to do. And so one of those things is driving alone across Canada, and I'm doing it. And now I've driven alone a lot in my life. Very first time I ever drove alone on a highway trip, I was 22, 23 maybe, and I had just gotten my driver's license a few months before, about 6 months before, and bought a car. And I was living in Sault Ste. Marie, Ontario. This is back in 1968, I guess, the spring of 68, March break. And I drove from Sault Ste. Marie to Winnipeg to see a friend. Driving to see friends is a big part of my life. I've done that a lot. And I went alone. And I was scared. I'd never really driven on the highway. And and somebody said, put it up to 60. It was miles per hour at that point. Put it up to 60 and hold it there, and you'll get used to it. And then you'll be able to drive at that speed. And by the time I came home a week later, I was driving at 65 and sometimes 70. It was okay. And it's true that doing it helped give me the confidence to do it. And that's true of this trip. A lot of people have said to me, I couldn't drive across Canada by myself. How could you? You're so brave. You're so brave. I am not that brave. I am not that brave. But I'm willing to be a bit uncomfortable in order to achieve certain goals that matter to me. I'm willing to take the stress of travel and not having someone else there. It is helpful when there are two of you. I agree. I just spent 6 weeks with my partner traveling. And when something happens, like the car breaks down when it did and stuff, it was helpful to have two of us. But today, when I got lost, because my GPS misdirected me when I was trying to go meet cousins, I had to figure it out myself. And I did. And I got there. I was 25 minutes late, and I had set out 15 minutes early to drive what was supposed to be a 4-minute drive. But I got there. I've been driving through mountains. Mountains are not my favorite places to drive. I'm a pretty good driver, a decent driver. Not as good as I used to be, quite, because I can't turn my head as fast and as far as I used to be able to do. But today was a better day than yesterday. Yesterday I drove the Coquihalla Highway. If any of you have watched the TV program Highway Through Hell, you will know about the Coquihalla. Now, mind you, they mostly show it in winter, and this is not winter, it's high summer. So it wasn't slippery. I didn't have to use winter tires, and the trucks didn't have to have chains on them or anything. Excuse me. Oh, tickle in my throat. But But it's mountains and it's curves and it's hills, and I am I'm a bit afraid when I go around curves. I want to slow down and make sure that I get around there fast. For some reason, I have this fear, this image in my mind that I will drive right off the edge and I will go plummeting down to the ground. So it's not that I don't have fear. I just do it anyway. I guess that's feel the fear and do it anyway. But I don't have so much fear that I'm, shaking and I'm nervous, really nervous and stuff. I'm just a little tense, a little stressed. And I slow down. I just slow down until I get to the speed that I'm comfortable. So this is Before It's Too Late tour number 3. The first one was in February of 2024, and my partner wasn't well enough to travel, so we had to cancel a month in Portugal. And so I drove down to Florida, and in the days when I still went to the U.S., I drove down to Florida, and then I drove all the way back up, seeing people all the way down and all the way back up. I spent a week with friends down there, and then saw people. Oh, how about breakfast with this person, lunch with this person, dinner with that person. Some people offered for me to stay overnight. I did. I went through 12 states. I saw 32 people in 8 states in 25 days. I drove a lot on the expressways. I was really tired of driving the U.S. expressways, and I got back. I had a few scary experiences. One time when a truck came out kind of over the line a little, and I jammed on my brakes and then heard a great air horn behind me, and there was a truck almost on top of me. And that was frightening. And then when my GPS put me into an HOV lane, and I was supposed to pay fees and fines, and I didn't know how to get out of it, and all kinds of things. It was my GPS that misled me today too, to get lost. It took me way out of my way and then back, and then gave me the wrong address, even though I had put in the right address. It took me to the wrong place. So there's stress in driving. There's stress in traveling. There's stress in being every night in a new hotel. A little bit of stress. You get a routine going. A little bit of stress. And I think one should do it anyway. Because otherwise I wouldn't get to see all these people I'm getting to see, cousins and friends and my goddaughter and like just friends, people that I've known over the years. And then that made me think about, just before we were coming, and then people asked, well, like, how will you eat, kind of handle eating? And I said, well, if I'm hungry, I'll go to a restaurant. And then my friends, several of them, said, oh, I can't go to a restaurant alone. How can you go to a restaurant alone? I'd be so self-conscious. I mean, I can go in and get takeout. And these are people in their 70s and 80s. And one in particular has been widowed since she was like 40-something. And somehow, in all those years, she's never gone into a restaurant and sat down and eaten a meal. Now, I wasn't the only person in our group who could do that. The women who had been single forever went, yeah. And in the days before you had a phone to play with, you took a book. And you sat and read the book if you didn't want to look at the people. And there's nothing to feel self-conscious about. And I feel that way. I remember one time in Venice, I had been on a cruise with a lot of family back in 2008. And it was going to be our last night in Venice. And I was with this great group of people. I mean, a huge group of family and friends. Friends of one of my sisters-in-law, but there were like, I think, 13 or 14 of us on that cruise. And they were all going that night to some kind of a eat-all-you-can cheap buffet. We were in Venice. I was going to go and eat by the canal at a really lovely restaurant and have a really lovely glass of wine and then walk back to the hotel. And I said, I'm going to go and do this. Anyone want to go? No, nobody wanted to go. So I went alone. It's not hard. It's just not hard. And I ended up talking, mostly in French, to a very lovely couple next door who were seated next to me. We had a really lovely conversation. Luckily, I can speak French well enough to do that. But even if I hadn't spoken to anyone, it wouldn't have mattered. It was a really nice meal. I mean, I likely paid I paid a lot of money because it was a tourist place, you know. But but I had this amazing last night in dinner and wine in Venice, and if I were afraid to go into a restaurant by myself, I would have missed that. So I don't do this perfectly, okay? There are things that I have not done in my life because I'm scared. And those things are mostly about physical adventure. Like, I have never done downhill skiing. I've always been afraid. I didn't have anyone saying to me, oh, let's go try downhill skiing either. But I've always been afraid to try that. I don't like height and I don't like speed. I figured it wasn't my thing. I did try cross-country skiing. I found it a little daunting, but I liked it. But I was in my 60s when I tried it, and then I didn't take it up. And so I've been afraid of those physical things. I did actually rappel down a 29-foot tower once. I would have been in my 50s, I guess. I might have only been in my 40s. So let's say in my 40s. And I was on a training course, and there were only a few of us on the course, maybe 6, 7 people, and they were all people I knew well, and we were having it at this military boys' school where there was a rappelling tower, and the guy who owned the school was one of the people on the course, and he said, anyone who wants to rappel down, you know, I'll teach you how to do it, and you could do it. The kids were all going for the summer, and the only 2 who took him up on that were the 2 women in the course. And I was petrified. My roommate, the other woman, told me that I was talking in my sleep for nights before because we took several days of preparation to do it. But I did it, and I did it once. And you know what? It gave me this great sense of, sorry, there's a bug, this great sense of confidence. I felt confident. Just like when I put the speedometer up to 60 miles per hour on the highway when I was 22 and then drove, I then had the confidence to have it. You learn and you grow and you get more confident by putting yourself a little out of your comfort zone. I'm not saying do dangerous things, just a little out of your comfort zone. So here I am driving across Canada, and I'm happy with myself that I can do this, but I'm not talking about it to boast. I'm talking about it because I think you can do that too. If you're young, push yourself a little bit. If you're middle-aged, push yourself a little bit. If you're old, push yourself a little bit to do something that you really want to do, even though it makes you a little nervous. I had some apprehensions before my partner flew home. He didn't want to meet all these people that I'm going to see. He's an introvert. That's his idea of hell. And he doesn't know most of them anyway. I had some apprehension. He had driven the whole way out here for 6 weeks. And I'm a nervous passenger in the car because I don't have control. And I was thinking, well, am I really going to be able to do this at my age? Even though I did the one down in Florida, a couple of years ago, and 2.5 years ago, and it was fine. I went to England and France that was my second Before It's Too Late tour, and I did that in September of 2023, September, October, I guess September of pretty much all of September 2023. I think I was gone for 5 weeks, from the last few days in August to the first few days in October. And in England, I did not drive. I took trains, and that had its own stresses. And then I went to Birmingham, and my friend Lizzie drove us around. That's the deal. And then we went to France, and I drove in France because it's on the right side of the road, as I'm used to driving. And while I had lived in France for 2 years, from 93 to 95, in my late 40s, I drove there just fine in those mountainous roads. And I had been back many times, and I had driven many times back there. And each time, as I got older, so the last time before that was 2012, I think, and I was fairly nervous. I was driving stick shift too. This time I drove stick shift for one day, and then we went and got an automatic, and a slightly bigger car, and that was a good thing. But I was on roads that were marked as 80 kilometers an hour, and I used to drive them at 80 kilometers an hour or more, and all I could do this time, I drove them at 45, 50. I was, maybe because of my age, or just because I hadn't done it for over 10 years, for 12, yeah, 12 years since I had been there in 2012. I was just scared. It was too scary, and and um, and so I have actually decided that I won't drive again if I go back to France. That if and when I go back there, I will either stay close to friends or I will rent someplace where there is train and bus service, and where my friends can come to see me. Um, but I don't have any plans to go back to France anytime soon, so we'll figure that out when it happens. So yeah, of course, age ultimately, and other conditions may ultimately make you say, I used to be able to do this and now I can't. I don't feel comfortable doing it. I don't drive as much at night as I used to either. But as long as I can, I'm going to continue to try to push it a little bit. Anyway, I would just encourage you. This has not been very long. I would encourage you to help to make your life fulfilling and satisfying. Don't put limits on yourself. Try to push those limits a little bit so that you can open yourself up to new experiences. My friend Elizabeth emailed me today after I emailed to say that I had gotten through the Coquihalla Highway and gotten myself to Kelowna, and she wrote back and said, "You did it. It's a challenge, and you've got bragging rights." I've got bragging rights, but I'm not bragging. I'm just saying, if I can do it, gosh, anyone can do it, because I'm pretty timid in a lot of ways. So that's all I have for today. It's fairly short. I hope you enjoy it. Please like and subscribe. Make a comment. I'd love to see comments, and do your, I just believe that you can have a happy, successful, and fulfilling life. Well, after I get home, I'm going to do some series on some things in series of videos about different things, the subjects of importance in making a happy life. So we'll get back to those things later. But meanwhile, from the road, I don't know if I'll be able to do one next week, but we'll see where I am and what I'm doing and whether I can fit one in. So take care. I've got one more day of mountain driving, and then I'll be in the prairies. Thank you, God. And I'm looking forward to that. And then I just have to watch for the forest fire situation in Northern Ontario. Luckily, the forest fire situation in BC was that the one highway that I needed, there were 3 highways from Hope in British Columbia, and 2 of them were closed, and the one I needed was open. That was really lucky. So take care. Do everything you can to live a beautiful, successful, fulfilling life. And I'll see you soon.